Hello everyone, welcome back. Here we are with Sapphire Blue. We are going to dive right in here on our set review, going over all of the Sapphire cards that Lorcana has to offer. Here we go. Now, one of the themes of Sapphire is to accelerate, meaning put more ink than your opponent can down to play bigger costing cards over and over again. And it starts us off right here with a couple cards that are really powerful to do so. So, Fishbone and Quill, one of the more recent cards that were previewed there, it's an item. It is inkable, which is a big part of it because most of the acceleration cards we've seen are not inkable, giving them some diminishing returns. Now, this isn't a card that does anything on its own, really, except it does have the ability to tap, put any card from your hand to your inkwell face down. Why that's good? I think it's a solid 3. It's not game-breaking, but it is definitely a good role player to keep in mind when building some of your bigger costing decks, is that some of the acceleration spells that you'll see there, the 2 cost to put the top card of your deck into your ink, or the Mickey Mouse, that the Investigator one that puts top card into your inkwell as well, those are uninkable cards. Now, later in the game, you don't really need more of those cards in your hand to pull from the top of your deck, or even want to spend the mana to play them. That this card can just tap to put them into play immediately. So being able to use those cards late game makes, I think, Fishbone Quill not a 4 of, but a card you want to play maybe 2 or 3 of to really help make use of those cards late. And it can just be a resource, if part of your inkwell if you play it early and draw too many of them. But yeah, big fan. See the Future. Chosen character gets +1 lore this turn. Interesting. So it basically is the ability to give anything you're going to quest with more lore. Costing 4, it's a bit high for me to really see this card do much. Of course, any lower cost and it might be too good, too fast, making everything you play a super annoying threat for your opponent to have to answer every single one of them. Giving this a solid 2.5. It's a fine card. It's not really something I'm thrilled to try and build around because, again, most of Sapphire's identity, I think, is playing bigger cards than your opponent's going to be. But complementing some of the cards in other colors that maybe are more aggressively slanted, this could definitely have a home. But going back to some of the bigger things and cards that we've seen only more recently is Tatoma, which is inkable 8. It's, I think, one of the few inkable 8s, along with Mickey Mouse, that certainly has a home in some decks like this. It goes pretty well with Fishbone Quill, where this is a 5 strength, 8 willpower, hard to kill. When you play this character and when it quests, you may turn an item card for your discard to your hand, so you can rebuy any item that's gone away. And back to some of the Ruby cards, they had the ability to banish themselves to take out princesses or villains. This card could go really well in a Sapphire Emerald kind of ramp deck where you want to reuse those effects. Additionally, this character gets +1 for each item you have in play. So this thing can come down and not only rebuy something you might have already used as far as an item goes, but this thing could easily quest for 6, 7, 8 with maybe Fishbone Quill and some of the other items that maybe reduced its cost in Amber or otherwise, or something just sits in play until you're ready to use it. But definitely a strong card. I'm giving this one 3.5 stars. Again, 3.5, just because it's definitely one of the finishers that if you're building around a certain type of effect, like items, which are some more supports in Sapphire 4 item cards, this is the finisher you're going to want 4 of. And being able to ink it is a huge part of why you're able to play for and build around it. So yeah, big fan. Next up, Phil. Not saying its real name, just calling it Phil. Support. So it's a 2 cost, 3/1 support. Now, we haven't seen many 3/1s. Actually, I think this might be one of the only 3/1s in the game, but it's a lot of strength there to add to another unit's strength. Being able to quest for 1, it's okay. It's not the best amount there. It's solid role player. You have to pair it with something that really wants to be able to challenge. I would say probably Amethyst, just because a lot of their cards are have the ability to tap things down like Elsa does and make Phil really give its support over and over again, kind of control the board entirely with being able to give 3 strength to anything really in play and repeatably support and quest to kind of end the game. Solid card, give it a 3. In decks where it's going to be good, it's going to be really good. Some decks it might have no text and just die immediately, so we'll see. But I think it's a pretty good card. Now, is there a downside to this? Okay, 7 cost. When you play this character, you may put chosen opposing character into their player's inkwell face down. So it's very similar to Maleficent the Dragon, which is 9 cost. Quest for 2 is a 7/5. This is a 3/6, so slightly worse on the strength and willpower stats. However, very similar effect. Making one of your opponent's cards into an ink for a lot of decks might not matter. They might not have cards, if they're an aggressive deck, you might not get to this card to begin with. But if they're an aggressive deck, then they might not have a use for that much ink later in the game, to whereas you being a deck with a lot of expensive cards and you're a Sapphire deck may. Big fan. This card's great. Leave it close to a 4. I mean, it's just beneath that, so I wouldn't really call it a true 4. If it was inkable, it'd be probably a 4.5, 5, but 3.5, 4 is really where I put it there. So a very strong card. I expect to see it in a lot of Sapphire decks that have some sort of acceleration. Chief Tui. Coming right along here, 3/6, 3 lore support. So more of the support theme here with a lot of the Sapphire things going on here. Questing for 3 is a big amount. 7's a high cost for this effect, but definitely a card that you could, I wouldn't say build around, because support's not really a build around mechanic. It works well with high health units, but it's fine. It's not something I'm thrilled to play with, but I'll give it a solid 3. Just for limited mostly, I'd say I'm probably not going to play this constructed much at all, but in the 2.5, 3 range, it's okay. It may come up, but I'm not looking to build with this card. All right. So kind of going back to some of the items there that you can banish at moment's notice. Magic Golden Flower. So 1 cost item. Banish this item, remove 3 damage from the chosen character. Give it a 2. Just going to go on the gates there. Healing isn't always the greatest. Usually dealing damage is always more important in card games than healing, but it being an item works with some of the emerald things we might see in a little bit. Yeah, it's fine. It'll come up, and again, the more item support we get, more things that trigger off of items being played or banished or brought back, it'll get better and better, but it's okay. Mufasa. Cool card. Not really great. Worse than the Chief we just saw in almost every way. Costs 1 less, but still. Not really where I'm at. 2 stars. Yeah, not much to talk about vanilla cards in this game. 2 cost 1/1. Grandma Tala. 1/1. So 2 cost 1/1. Interesting stat line we don't see much of because it's not very good, but it is inkable, and when this character is banished, you may put this card into your ink wall face down and exert it so it's tapped. This card's really good. I'm going to give it a 3. It's not quite a ramp spell because you can't go from 2 to 4, which is usually what you want to do when you play a card that accelerates you on turn 2. This really gets you from 3 to 5, because either it gives you a lore each turn by questing, or you can just throw it into one of your opponent's cards to put 1 damage on it, and then put this into your inkwell. So it's this very solid card. I expect a lot of Sapphire decks to have this, especially to check the Lilo and Maleficent 1 cost 1/1s. This helps a little bit there. It's a little slow, but it's certainly fine and can be inked later. So yeah, solid 3. Jasmine, Queen of Agrabah. Weirdly enough, when I read this, I was super annoyed because I saw Queen of Agrabah, but it is a princess and a queen. Weird, don't know how you can be both, but it's both. Shift 3. So there's a couple Jasmines you can play that are reasonable. When you play this character and she quests, and whenever she quests, you may remove 2 damage from each of your characters. So princesses are getting really hard to kill, from what I've noticed. There's a lot of support for princesses healing themselves, whether it be through Rapunzel or Jasmine, or there's a couple other ones I believe that just heal quite well. And yeah, it's certainly solid. It doesn't shift for enough to be super threatening, and its stats aren't too oppressively good, but it's fine. You'll definitely play it, especially with princesses, and being able to heal them back up when your emerald opponent is trying to whittle them down with giving them reckless and attacking them in with some smaller things. But solid role player, solid 3 stars. But yeah, another card's fine. All right, work together. Chosen character gains support. So this is essentially a pump spell, really. Much like we've seen where the one that gave to villains +3 and the other one and it gives +2 attack or +2 strength. This isn't really my cup of tea. I'm giving it a 1. I don't see these kind of cards being very good in constructed. Again, if there is limited for this game drafting, maybe, sure, it's fine, but I'm off it. On to Belle, Strange but Special. Weird title, but hey, it's a princess. Read a book. During your turn, you may put additional card from your hand into your ink will face down. So, if you think in Magic terms, it's Azusa, Lost but Seeking, but only 1 card each turn. Weird analogy, but it also has this ability where if you have 10 or more cards in your ink will, it gets +4 lore. I read that as for +4 strength the first time. I thought it was still good, +4 lore is a huge win condition. Now 10 is a lot, and this will probably have to be paired with cards like Whole New World, which we can get to in a little bit, to really have the 10 come up. But it is definitely a card that's going to see a ton of play. Not only does it pair well with going from 4 to 6, which there are a lot of powerful 6s we've seen in Emerald and other classes as well. Also, some 6s in Sapphire as well to ramp 2. This is also a win condition to early game. This one's getting a solid 4 stars from me. Again, the only thing holding it back is it costs, it's 4, but that's not too much for games like this. Again, this can go from 4 to 7. This can go straight to Aladdin. Like, you don't have to have an Aladdin 3 in play. You just go, turn 4, play this, play a 5th resource, then turn 5. You get to play one for your turn and then play the additional one. That's 7. That's immediately to Aladdin. Now, getting from 4 to 7 by itself, granted, of course, you have to have three cards you want to put down as ink, but it's a pretty big jump there, and allowing your deck to do that really without having drawn some of the other acceleration you could play. Huge payoff there. Huge key piece to the deck, and also being a win condition later in the game. Inking or questing for 5 is really unheard of in the game. It's not. There's nothing else that quests for 5 that comes close to this. I mean, Hades kind of, but not really. Yeah. Next here, we have a Scepter of Arendelle. The chosen character gains support this turn. A little bit better, I'd say, than the spell we just saw that does the same effect, since chosen character gains support. I don't know why you'd ever play Work Together over Scepter of Arendelle, since they're the same card. But this one's repeatable, so this one's fine. If items matter, it gets even better. 2 stars, it's fine. Maleficent, also okay. Vanilla, lures for a lot, but just okay otherwise. Inkable, which is nice. The Maleficent's fine. Villains might matter, and the Sapphire, Amethyst, Hades deck, I'd imagine, plays this. Maybe 2.5, 3 in that range there. If it's not broke, you can return an item for your discard to your hand. Don't play this. I don't know why they exist like this. They're really high cost to do these kind of effects. It's just not good. Just play another item in your deck, because you don't have as much room for items as you want, and maybe you play one of this card again to like have a little bit of a toolbox, but it not being inkable is just kind of poor. I'm passing on all of the effects like this, so yeah. Triton the Sea King. I'm gonna pass. It's a big thing, but as we just saw Hades being 7, granted this one's inkable, being able to just kill something when it comes down functionally. This does none of those things, and it's just high cost and some stats, which if you've played card games before, those get, they look flashy, but Visordrix was never a good card in Magic. Yeah. Merlin, support. So with 4 cost, 3/4 support, buff something for 3 when you quest with it. It's not great. Limited, sure, but 1 star. Same thing with Donald. It costs too much for its effect, and it dies to too many things. We can just get challenged. These things are not where I want to be in this game and constructed at all. Kind of 3 misses across the board, though they're cool art. I like the art on these things. Definitely makes Triton look younger. Yeah. So some cards here, all pretty good. Ariel, look at this stuff. Whenever you play an item, you may ready this character. Okay, so this is one of the more dangerous cards I haven't figured out what to do with yet. It's uninkable for a good reason, because it doesn't have the restriction of not being able to quest when it readies, which most cards that ready themselves or ready something else say they can't quest. This does not. So this could potentially gain 3, 4, or 5 lore in a turn if you have been storing up a bunch of items to recast or replay over and over again and run away with the game that way. It's not quite like we're there yet. There's not enough item support in the game yet to make something like this really good, but threatening the ability to make some of your late game items into just also 1 lore when you play them is a pretty big deal. And I'm sure eventually we'll see this be a prominent force in the game, just with enough items that maybe draw a card or something like that, which I wouldn't love to see, but I'm sure we will at some point. 3 stars, potentially 5 if it's broken enough. So, who knows. Mickey Mouse, Detective. So, 3 costs, 1/3, has the ability to quest, which is nice. Get a clue, put the top card of your deck into your inkwell. It goes from 3 to 5. Very good. A little overshadowed by the fact that Bell exists, I think. Because like before then we had this and the 2-cost spell, which we'll get to, was the only ways to accelerate. But now there's like 2 or 3 other cards that also do it. And this one's looking worse and worse as that time goes on, but it's still fine. You'll still play it. So yeah, solid 3 stars, very good role player, but nothing to write home about. Jasmine, the only Jasmine I think we can shift onto right now for the other one. It's a princess, which makes 2 lore for 3 quite good with Moana. Just being able to ready them again and not have them die. So yeah, solid role player in those kind of decks you'll play for this card for sure. Jasmine's the only really vanilla card because it has the type princess there that I consider very good. Coming right down here, Aurora, Briar Rose. When you play this character, the chosen character gets -2 power till end of turn. Weird because there's also the horse, which has the same effect as this in a different color. It's a 3-mana 3/3. This card's fine. I could see it being played in more so limited than anything else. I liked it for a bit. It doesn't let you kind of free kill some of the 2/2s early on, which is nice. Them thinking they have to they get to quest for free with one of the 1-mana 2/2s because you'd have to trade down to kill it. You get to play this and then kill their thing and then kill the rest of their 2/2s. But fine, 2.5, 3 stars I'd say in there. You'll play it and it's inkable, so cool. Bell, Inventive Engineer, different Bell, works with items. Another reason to play items and it makes them cheaper for a turn. It being just a baseline 3-cost 2 lore questing princess is strong. I'll give this a solid 3, much like the one we just looked at here, Jasmine. 1 less strength, but the effect probably will be more relevant than the strength will be most of the time. Yeah, solid. Same thing with Aurora. You're going to play this in any deck with Aurora 5, the 5-cost 1. 2-cost 2 lore is strong as a baseline for most cards there. So yeah, solid. Going to play them in a lot of decks with the 5-cost Aurora to shift into. So next here we have Develop Your Brain. Look at the top 2 cards, put 1 to your hand, note at the bottom. Well, if we look back to the Amethyst set where there's the song, which you look at the top 3 and put them back in any order and then don't draw, this card kind of walks circles around there. It's kind of embarrassing. Now this card's not, I would say, great. It's fine. It's actually really good in other games, but I think in this game, people don't realize the difference between games where your cards double as your resources to where you have to play cards that are only resources. This effect is much less powerful in decks or in games where everything's an action, really, everything's a spell, versus games where you have dead cards like resources, like land late in the game. So this card's fine. You'll still play it a bunch, 3 stars, but it's not as insane as it would be in other games. So don't get me wrong, it's a fine card, but it's not great. I could see you not playing it, and I wouldn't bat an eye. So yeah. The coconut. Consider the coconut basket. Whenever you play a character, remove 2 damage from the chosen character. It's interesting. There's some healing aspect to it. And it's inkable, so that is cool. But it doesn't do anything when you play it, is my issue with it. When you play it, it has no text. It doesn't do anything. You have to play something else afterwards. Giving it a little bit of a knock against it. Giving it 2 stars because it'll likely see play in a lot of item decks, and being able to protect some of your cards by healing them up could be good, but it needs some help. It'll see play, but I'm not thrilled by it for right now, at least. As the game goes on, maybe this will be more and more playable, but it's okay for now. We can jump right to Flounder. I've said this about all the 1-mana 2s. They kind of define the early stages of the game. 2/2 for 1. It's fine. You'll play it. Moving on. Some of the more interesting cards here. 1 Jump Ahead. Getting the 3-star rating there. It is a very good card. It helps define Sapphire. The reason I don't give it a high rating is because it's not super powerful. It's just a role-playing card. But it's going to enable a lot of decks, and going from this into Bell is going to be one of the scariest curves you can play, because this into Bell into a 7-drop is a turn 4 7-costing card, and that's just kind of crazy. Being uninkable is the balancing act that it has, and yeah, it's going to see a lot of play. Also being able to sing it randomly, I don't know that that's going to come up very often, because you want to go from 2 to 4, and when you sing it, it's going to be exerted, so you have to have a 2-cost card in play. Then the next turn, on turn 3, You play this for free, which gets you from 3 to 5, not 2 to 4. So who knows? I don't think it'll be sung very often, but it could be. Yeah. Now, my pick for one of the best cards in the set, Let It Go. And of course, one of Disney's most famous songs. Again, I think that putting something into an inkwell face down exerted is very similar to being banished. Almost the same as the Ruby card that just banishes for 5, except this is a song. Being able to just, have your 5 played and then they play a 5 and then you get to just play a 6 to end this, that turn to kind of, get ahead. Huge swing. Granted, they can then play a 7 cost card, but this will see a ton of play in almost every Sapphire deck, I imagine. Big fan. One of my favorite cards, and also works with the Ariel that's 3 cost that looks for a song and can sing something that costs 5. So yeah, this was a huge inclusion in any Sapphire deck. I expect it to be a staple for as long as it's legal. I can't imagine it not being, so yeah. Maurice. So 6 cost inkable, good. 2/7. That's a lot of strength or willpower there. It quests for 2, which is good. Whenever it quests, you pay 2 less for the next item you play. That's very good. It works similar to Bell. And whenever you play an item, you may draw a card. Now, this is a very... If you've heard anything I've ever talked about in Magic, which is a game I've played most of, the most dangerous card they can ever print on cards is the word whenever. Because one of the ways to abuse whenever is just do the whenever thing very often. And now making all of your items that you might not have been able to play earlier or may have been able to hold to certain points into just cheap cards that just draw cards off of themselves makes this huge critical mass to work with. Let's go back up here with Tatoma. +1 for each item to play. So Maurice and Tatoma are going to be best friends, working together to really kind of be a board full of items that can really just take over a game and win it on the spot. Now, this is definitely a key card in that strategy. Giving it a 3.5 rankings. It's not quite a 4 on its own. It's close to it because some of the items need a little bit of help to really be playable, and there's not enough, I don't think, quite yet, but this card's going to be danger by set 2 for sure. One of the cards to look out for. Let's scroll down here. See a little duplicate there in Mickey, but we got Scar here. So 6 cost, 5/4. Whenever you play this character, opposing character gets -5 strength till the next turn. So you really just want to pair this with the ability to just challenge into something. Not really something that Sapphire is very good with, but imagine playing the Ruby Maui, which is a 6/5 Reckless and Rush, and you kill something with this, they play something, and you're able to then shrink that thing that they played down and hit it with the Maui again. Now that just basically 6 cost, 5/4 kill something. It won't always come up because it's a little situational. They have to have an exerted card and you have to be able to attack into it. But it certainly can. This card I'd say is a solid 3. It's not something I'm going to write home about or I'm thrilled to play a bunch of, but in limited, if there's a limited format again for this game, very strong and could sneak its way into constructed based off how the metagame kind of goes. So yeah, strong card. Next up, we have Robin Hood. One of the primary cards I imagine people are going to ramp into, because when you're using a lot of your resources or your actions or even Bell to put cards into your inkwell, you need to refill your hand. And when you play this card, if you have less cards than your opponents, you get to draw a card. So a functionally free card that when you play it, you draw a card and is a 4/4 evasive on your turn, meaning it can challenge things that are evasive, not really that it can not be killed by things, but anything that replaces itself. Definitely a strong card. That's getting 3.5, not quite 4, but 3.5. Very strong card. We've looked at Mickey Mouse before. Here he is again. We have a vanilla looking Maleficent. There's a 5 cost one with 2 more toughness and 1 more inkwell. It's fine. It's not great. Nothing really to say there. It's okay. Again, an Amber Sapphire ramp deck that uses villains primarily. I could see it being played in. So 2 stars, 3 stars in that scenario. It's fine. Aurora. So shift 3. There's the 2 cost Aurora. That's a 2/2 that quests for 2. This is a 3/5, so it comes down pretty quickly. And your other characters gain ward. Pretty strong if you don't want them to be killed by an action like fire the cannons or anything like that and steal. But also, they can't choose them except a challenge, meaning they can't make them reckless. Pretty powerful effect. This is also getting a 3.5 ranking there, 3.5 area there, because it can be come down pretty early on turn 3 and immediately just quest, and it's a 3/5, so not much can attack into it on turn 3. And it can also just take down something really big, or just take down a 2/2, and then you have a 3/3 there, kind of holding the board to itself. And if you ever have 2 of these in play, you get to have your entire board have a ward there, which means they can't target with anything, and you can really just at your leisure do what you want, because they can't destroy anything, except with, I guess, Be Prepared, which would be pretty poor for you if you get your whole board of 2 Auroras and other things Be Prepared. But solid card, big fan. Put Aurora and this Aurora, like the 2-cost one and the 5-cost one, into most of my Sapphire decks as just filler. They kind of help end the game with two lore there being gained each time they quest. Solid card, protects your bigger things. Yeah, happy with it most of the time. But that's it here for Sapphire. All the cards in Sapphire, they have a pretty strong theme of ramping into the Hades and the giant turtle, can't remember his name right now, look to be some of the better cards. But the overall ramp strategy, I think, feels more as a support color than an actual color you want to go hard on. Now, there will be some times where we get enough items to make Maurice even better, but for right now, pretty good support color. Going with Ruby is one of the more powerful things I think you can do in the game currently. But yeah, big fan. But let's not stop here. Let's move right along. And we have Steel. We don't save the best for last, but it very well might be. Who knows? But see you guys next time.